Everyone, I am about to introduce to you author Rosalind Brackenbury, and we're going to be talking about her newest book. Comes out this week, and it's called The Lost, I'm reading it because I want to make sure, Lost Letters of HENRI FOURNIER. Historical fiction. You guys know I love historical fiction. And this takes place part of the story takes place during World War I. I love this story. I can't wait to ask her where she found it. So everyone, here is Rosalind.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I am speaking with author Rosalind Brackenbury, and we're going to be talking about her brand new book that comes out this week called The Lost Letters of HENRI FOURNIER. And I'm saying his name right, Rosalind, because my Pennsylvania Dutch accent does not do well with French.
Okay.
Did I do a good enough job?
Henri.
I think
well,
you should say it.
Not bad. Yeah.
Henri.
Yes.
You know what? I went back and forth. I was like, is it Henry or Henri?
Henri.
It's Henri.
Henri.
Okay.
Henri. Yeah, that's right.
Henri. And how do you say his last name?
Fournier.
Fournier. Okay, so I got that a little bit good. So anyway, I wanted to ask you that before, but anyway, I was like, well, a lot of people read like me too. So.
Yes, exactly. I know. No problem.
So this book comes out June 12th. We are taping this a little bit ahead, but you will be able to access it this week, the week that you are listening to this. And I am so excited to talk about this, Rosalind, because I love historical fiction so much. And this was something I did not know about. And so I'm going to let you tell everybody the story and how you found Henri, as you found
yes.
him.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, with pleasure. I mean, I read his book. He wrote a novel in 1913 called, this is another tongue twister for Americans, Le Grand Monde, but it was translated as The Lost Domain, which would be more familiar to people, I think, because their film was made of it, a movie, some years ago. And it was a classic in France and was on every school child's sort of reading list. It's less well known here, but it is translated, and actually with a foreword by Adam Gopnik, which is an interesting version. It's an interesting edition that I recommend it, because he's kind of interesting about the book itself. And he wrote one book, and then he was killed in the First World War. Well, I've always been fascinated by this novel. And I read it when I was quite young, about sort of 18, I suppose, which is the age he was when he wrote it, began writing it. And then I discovered that he had had a long love affair with a woman who's older than him just before the First World War. And his family had kind of hushed it up because she was, first of all, she was an actress, and then she was half Jewish, and she was married. So 3 strikes against her for a very religious Catholic family. And so they just completely sort of suppressed the fact that of this love affair and made out that he was, sort of longing only for platonically for the woman who, in the book, who was based on a real person too. So I found this fascinating. And then a friend of mine in Paris did a lot of research for me and sent me a big parcel, this is quite a long time ago now, of her memoirs, her own writings, and these love letters, which they were in French, and I translated them myself. I mean, I read them.
Wow.
And did my own translation. And so I thought, well, I really have to write about this. I hadn't meant to write another novel about a dead French person, as I said before, because I already wrote about Georges Sand in an earlier book. But I do spend quite a lot of time in France, and I thought, well, nobody's going to know about this, and either this will fascinate them or it won't, but it certainly is a bit of history which I don't think anyone's written about. So am I talking too much? Should I go on about it?
No, I'm
okay.
Fascinated.
Okay. So the thing was, he died. He was killed when he was 27, and she lived to be 108. Which is really amazing.
Right.
And so I made up, this is the invented part of the novel, the fact that when she's in her 90s, this young man goes to Paris to interview her because he's fascinated about the story himself, and he wants to write a book about Fournier and this love affair, which nobody admitted has happened. although the actress, Pauline, she was pretty well known in the French theatre, but his family had done a sort of hatchet job on the whole thing. And so anyway, I have this young man going back to interview her in her old age. And the book is kind of 3 stories interwoven, each of which deals with really the loss of your great love in life and what you do after, with the rest of your life after that. Because Seb, first of all, Sebastian, he goes as a young man to interview Pauline. And Pauline lets him read the letters, and so he writes the book that makes his name, actually. And then we revisit Seb in another part of the book, in his 60s, newly widowed, because the love of his life, who's called Annie, his wife, has just died, and he doesn't know what to do with himself when a woman contacts him from France and says, well, I've just found these papers that belong to my great-uncle, Henri, and I know you wrote a book about him. I wonder if you'd like to come and take a look. So as he's sort of desperately unhappy and doesn't know what to do next, he takes off to France and goes and visits this woman in her house in the country, and she turns out to be Fournier's great niece, and she has, on the way to selling her house, found a cache of papers in the attic. So it's a fairly complicated book. As you can see, I have a hard time describing the whole thing. But these 3 stories sort of intertwine with each other. And the themes are similar, but happening in a different historical context and with some of the same people, but not all. And,
well, I love historical fiction. I love historical fiction. Okay. So, this, and I know a lot of people who do. And what we historical fiction readers love is a story we've never heard of. And not that I can't appreciate ones, because if you take it from a different angle, you can appreciate stories you have heard of. But when I found this book, I was like, this is just like right up my alley. I've never heard of this person. I don't know. So what happens is because I'm reading it with such fresh eyes.
Yeah,
that
that's great.
I'm just learning about this man, and I love Seb's character so much. And I felt like I was on his journey of, heartache at times, but then discovering, and I don't know, he was just, you wrote him so well that.
Oh, I'm so glad you think that, because it's always tricky writing from the point of view of the other gender, you're making a guess at it somehow. Yeah.
Yes. And I don't know, I was thinking that as, not just as the other gender, but then a widow. A widower.
Like a widower, yes.
Yeah, a widower, because I've read a lot of stories from the woman's point of view, but kind of going through that with him, I loved, it was,
yeah.
It was so touching.
And sort of inspired to do that by having 2 close male friends who both lost their wives and who talked to me very frankly about what they were feeling like, and that was really helpful.
Yeah. I was thinking, because my grandfather outlived my grandmother by not much. And I remember when she had passed away, people would say, in the family would say, well, he's not going to live that long. He's not. And he didn't, because they always say, she would have gone on and she would have done other things. And, but there's something about when a man loses his wife. And so I thought that you portrayed that really well with him, because, he didn't give up. At times he wanted to give up, but he didn't. And he kept going. And I was like, well, maybe if my grandfather would have been younger, maybe that could have been, he was in his 80s. But,
yes.
You do hear that. It isn't just like in my family. You hear that a lot. That for some reason for the man, it's a little bit more difficult when they've been married for a while. And so, it was. I thought you wrote him very touching, and I loved his journey.
Thank you. I'm really glad. Yes.
And I was really shocked when I got to the end of the book. I was shocked to find out that Isabel she was not a real person, right?
No.
That was part of the fiction.
That was fiction, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Because you really fooled me, because I really thought, I was like, of course she existed. Of course,
Yeah.
So that's awesome, right?
Well, that's one thing that's fun about writing novels, is and particularly historical. I mean, you can use history and you can use invention at the same time. I'm pretty careful about getting the historical facts right. I don't want to just invent history for the sake of it, but I've invented her as a person. So, with the context. So I thought I should come clean about it in my note at the end.
I know, because I started to look for her, so I was like, as I'm reading it, I kind of do a little bit of research because I want to know, and I was kind of for her. And, so I was like, okay, so, all right. It wasn't that I just couldn't find her, but
no.
I mean, what a story. And I read on your website that you love reading letters from the past.
Yes, I found them totally fascinating, really. Although it have to be said that people's love letters, they do read a little bit repetitive. They tend to say the same things over and over again. But it was fascinating to get hold of them, and just see, as well as all the poured out passionate love, what was actually going on for them both too. Because her life in the theatre, she was away a lot, out of France a lot. So they wrote more to each other than even people might have done who'd lived in different cities. I mean, they both lived in Paris most of the time, but a lot of the letters took place because she was touring in America and in England. And also he was away in the army and sending her very brief messages. Yeah.
Well, I love reading, first of all, World War I stories. I love them right now. There's so much being written on World War II, and I can read those endlessly, but there's something about World War I, and especially how you placed it in that context of over there, and with a true, someone who actually lived and died during World War I. I just love that story. But first of all, I want to tell everybody this, you live in Key West, right?
I do, yes.
I'm so envious. I'm like, if I could pick a place to live, that would be really up there. It's like paradise down there.
Yes, it's actually pouring with rain at this moment, and all the poor tourists are looking very unhappy. But it is a very good place to live. Yes, and I came here completely by chance. Really, I didn't intend to come and live in the United States. Really. But that's another story.
Well, and especially to live, I don't think I've ever talked to anyone who lived there. A lot of people go there for vacations and stuff.
Yeah.
My mom spent a lot of time in Key West, but she lived in Jupiter, Florida, and she loved it there so much. She would vacation there all the time, but I was like, she actually lives there, at least part of the year.
Yeah, I've lived here for nearly 25 years now.
Wow.
My husband's been here since the 70s. So he's even more, of a Key Wester than me. But it's a wonderful place from all sorts of points of view. But what has been really helpful to me have been the writers I've met down here, because there is a tremendous writing community.
Yes,
it's
and
really
of course,
good.
You say Key West, and right away you think of Ernest Hemingway. So, that's where my brain goes. Because he was such a big part of that, community at one time. So,
yes.
And I've read a lot on him. So, but
he was too, and to Elizabeth Bishop, and a lot of other people. But the living ones now, everybody's getting older. But it really has been a wonderful place to be from that point of view.
From a community, yeah. Well, I'm going to try. Because we were going to be talking on Skype, and what I did was I took a picture of a paragraph of my favorite in this book. And so what I'm going to attempt to do now that we're on my phone is I'm going to just put it, switch over and try to read it from my phone, because I just thought this was so beautifully written. And so if you hear a little bit of a pause, it's just because I got to find it because we're talking on my phone. So hold on for just a second. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just so you can hear me. It says, there are stages in all love affairs that flag their progress as surely as milestones on a road. You have, both of you, to recognize them. They aren't always happy or easy, but they are points at which you can both say, yes, that was then and I was there. We were both there and knew what was happening. The narrative of love stories depends on them. Once one of you forgets or remembers differently, the map changes, endings proliferate. When I read that, I teared up. I thought that was so beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So poetic and so beautiful. And I just had to share that with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
I mean, well, it captures the essence of the book in many ways, in every story. And I don't know. It was just, I was like, when she wrote this, Because I know, like, as you're writing as an author, there are a lot of things that hit you as you're writing it, and then there are things that kind of hit you before, and you're going to work it in. And
Yes.
so was that something that as you were writing it came to you, or did you know that was going to be in there?
I think it was I sort of thought it as I was writing it, because it tends to be how I work, that I think while I'm writing rather than thinking in advance. I mean, I do think in advance about plot and stuff, but sometimes I just find myself writing something because it seems right for that place, for that particular point in the book, or that scene. It's hard to remember exactly. I don't remember when I wrote that, but I think I did it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it isn't any kind of when it's historical fiction, you're not really like giving away any endings, but because this story is so unknown, and I was like, well, this doesn't give away anything, but it really shows like how beautifully written this book is. And because I love your words so much, I think that's more of what, kept me going, was just the poetry of it. And I don't know. I thought it was beautifully written.
That means a lot to me, because that's what I look for in a book. I mean, I look at the first pages of books, and frankly, if the writing captures me, I'm going to continue, and if it doesn't, well, it's not going to work. You can tell. It's like somebody's sort of fingerprints all over something, Yes. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. So it's very much what I care about when I'm reading. So I'm glad that worked for you. Yeah.
Oh, it really did. And I also saw that you are a Lake Union author.
Yes.
I call them. I interview a lot of Lake Union authors, and everybody, while we're speaking, they're looking at the cover of this book. And that's why I wanted to point this out, because I have been loving the covers for Lake Union books so much. They've become like my favorite covers lately. And this cover does not disappoint, okay?
It's really nice, isn't it? Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah.
It's beautiful. And they have just, in the last 2 or 3 years, their cover designs have been outshining everybody else. And I just wanted to shout out to Lake Union, because I really, really enjoy their book covers. It's not just that it's so beautiful, but when you look at the detail that they put into it and the story, it's just perfect.
It is, isn't it? It's like when I saw it, I thought, they didn't have to show me. I think they showed me 2, and they were both good. But this just was outstanding.
Oh, it's so, as soon as I saw that, that you were a Lake Union author, and I was like, of course, look at this book cover. Of course she
is. They know you have a very good design department, I think, yeah.
I know, and they're one of my favorite publishing companies right now. I am loving everything that they're putting out, and, so I'm really happy that you found them, or they found you, or however that happened for you.
Yes, me too. Yes, it's been great.
So, it's such an amazing book. It really is. I just want to, everybody out there, if you love historical fiction and you want a story you've never heard of, you will love this book so much. And, this, like I said, this is going to be coming out this week. I will have all of your links listed underneath here. You'll be able to go to Amazon. The Amazon link will be there. You can go right there to the Amazon link and get the book immediately. And I'm so happy that I found you, Rosalind. I really
me too.
I feel so blessed to have read this.
And it is so wonderful when you've been working for years on a book, because this one has taken a long time, to have people's appreciation and understanding of what I was doing. It's a gift. It really is. It's what every writer
Yes,
needs.
and I did see that. That's right. It took you a long time to write this, and the research and everything, right? That's the thing about historical fiction, though, right? The research is everything.
Yes. And you can get awfully stuck in it, too. You feel like you've got to put everything in. And then you've got to, and somebody gave me very good advice, well, just put this all on one side and then write the novel. Otherwise, you're plodding around in, research for too long.
Yeah, I think I would be that kind of an author, too. If I had to do historical fiction, I think I'd get really caught up in details, thinking I missed something that should be in there,
Yes, or you find it so fascinating yourself. You think, everyone's going to be so interested in this. And then you think, well, actually, it's got nothing to do with the story. I bet, Gotta go.
Well, before we let you go, what are you working on now?
Well, I am working on another novel, and I'm also on a book of poetry, which is due out next year. So I do both.
No wonder you write so poetically. Of course.
And,
of course.
So that's coming out with Hanging Loose Press in New York sometime next year. So I'm working on that at the moment, and I'm coming to the end of working on another novel. Yeah.
Is it historical fiction also?
Not in the way that this is, although it goes back into the 20th century quite a bit. So I guess it's historical, yes, but it's also got quite a bit of it happens in the present. It's a different sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, well, I can't wait to read the poetry book too, because, I think that there have been a lot more poetry books out there now. People are getting a different perspective on them, and they're coming back around again and, enjoying them. They were so big long ago. You read poems and, but now I think people are really appreciating them again.
I think so too, and there are a few poets who've really made poetry more accessible, so that people aren't scared of it the way they were. I think that's
because
too.
how in school you'd be like so afraid, when you were told like, you've got to tell me what this poem means, and you'd be like, I don't know what the poem
means. You haven't a clue. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then you grow up and you're like, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. You have a whole different look at it. So, well, thank you so much, Rosalind. Like I said, all of her links will be listed underneath here so you can find her. And I hope you have a great book release week. I hope it's a lot of fun and
Thank you so much.
a lot of the press and all the fun stuff that you put all this hard work into.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for this.
Sure. We'll talk to you soon,
talking to you.
Rosalind. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Rosalind. That was so sweet. Oh my gosh, she is adorable, and I love the way she explained this book. Guys, if you like historical fiction, you will love this book, okay? And like I said to her, a story not too many people, I am sure you don't know about it, unless you're French. And she said that, everyone in France knew of him. So anyway, she was so much fun. And I just want to thank her, tell you all her links are listed below here. And thank you so much, Rosalind. It was so nice to meet you. And even though we talked on the phone, but it was so awesome to talk to you. Thank you.